I am going to tell you the most uncomfortable, devastating truth about wealth that every elite university, every traditional bank, and every corporate human resources department in this country is absolutely terrified you might finally figure out right at this very moment. Millions upon millions of people are blindly following a catastrophic financial script written by a fundamentally broken system, accumulating massive, unforgivable debt for generic degrees that have absolutely zero intrinsic market value, voluntarily walking into a trap that forces them to spend the next 40 years working exhausting jobs they deeply hate just to buy depreciating consumer goods they do not even need, all to compete in a rigged, pathetic game where the only guaranteed prize is just more anxiety, more stress, and total financial paralysis. And I need you to understand that your lack of wealth is not bad luck. It is not the fault of the macroeconomic cycle, and it is certainly not because of temporary inflation. It is because you are permanently, willingly trapped in the herd mentality, suffering from a terminal failure of imagination, falsely believing that following the conventional path laid out by your parents and high school counselors is a guarantee of safety when the mathematical reality dictates that it is actually a guaranteed, irreversible path to financial ruin. And if you want to receive more unfiltered, brutal truths like this, that polite society, the government, and the university cartels are desperately trying to hide from you behind a veil of fake prestige, subscribe to the channel right now, because what comes next will show you exactly how your mind has been programmed to fail from the very moment you stepped into a kindergarten classroom, how the institutions you trust are actively mining your future for their own profit, and precisely what you must do today to escape this matrix. The trap is so deeply ingrained in the American psyche, so perfectly disguised as the ultimate moral good, that people do not even see the iron bars of their own cage. They genuinely believe that taking out massive, non-dischargeable loans at 18 years old to sit in a generic lecture hall listening to obsolete theories is a noble investment in their future, but it is actually the ultimate form of systemic conformity and modern financial servitude, a deeply cynical mechanism designed to strip you of your capital and your prime years before you even understand how money works. You are buying into the middle-class script that conditions you through mimetic desire to chase hollow status and social validation instead of building actual asymmetric wealth. You are being explicitly taught to play it safe, to be a compliant worker, to be just like everyone else but maybe 5% better in a meaningless corporate ranking, to fight tooth and nail for incremental gains in a system perfectly designed to extract your capital and crush your independence. But what important truth about money do very few people agree with you on? The brutal, contrarian truth is that competition is exclusively for losers. The herd is being led to the financial slaughterhouse by a higher education bubble that operates exactly like a ruthless luxury cartel, selling an illusion of historical prestige while saddling you with a mortgage-sized debt before you even get your first mediocre paycheck, creating an entire generation of indentured servants who cannot afford to take risks, who cannot afford to innovate, and who are entirely dependent on a corporate salary just to survive the monthly interest payments. I know this intimately, not from theory, but because I saw it firsthand when I was trapped in what society considers the absolute pinnacle of success, working in a highly prestigious Manhattan law firm, surrounded by miserable, highly educated, fiercely intelligent people who were competing viciously for absolute scraps, engaging in a toxic war of attrition just to get a slightly larger office or a microscopic annual bonus. I had done everything right according to the herd's manual. I went to Stanford for my undergraduate degree. I got the elite law degree. I played the prestige game flawlessly. And sitting in that Manhattan office, I suddenly realized I was running a frantic, exhausting race I should not even be in, fighting a battle where the winner just gets more work and more debt, until I realized that the only way to build true generational wealth is to step completely, unapologetically outside the matrix of conventional wisdom, to stop competing and start creating. Which is exactly what I did when I left that toxic environment of fake prestige behind to build PayPal, taking an asymmetric risk, and subsequently investing in the specific technologies and contrarian founders that actually move the human race forward from 0 to 1. And before we continue to mathematically dismantle this corrupt system point by point, tell me right here in the comments which state you are watching from. I want to know exactly how many independent, contrarian thinkers are in this fight with me today. Write down your city right now and let us form a relentless community of people who truly want to break the mold, abandon the herd, and achieve absolute financial sovereignty. Now, I want you to consider the cold, ruthless logic behind the first massive error you are making, which is the catastrophic decision to finance a useless college degree for the sheer sake of cocktail party social validation and familial approval. The herd willingly falls into this trap because human beings are fundamentally driven by mimetic desire. They want what other people want simply because other people want it. They are absolutely terrified of looking like failures to their peers, of being perceived as weird or unconventional. So they blindly sign away their financial freedom, legally binding their future labor to the government and private lenders, all for a piece of paper that possesses absolutely zero market scarcity in an economy that only rewards unique value creation and the immediate. Highly visible consequence of this herd behavior is that you start your adult life entirely in the negative, starting a marathon with a backpack full of heavy bricks in a deep financial hole that renders you entirely unable to take the asymmetric risks required to build real wealth because you are perpetually chained to a rigid monthly payment schedule that dictates where you live, what jobs you must accept, and what indignities you must tolerate from an employer. Let us look at the brutal, undeniable mathematics of conventional wisdom right here and right now. If you are 18 years old and you follow the herd by taking out an $80,000 student loan at 8% annual interest for a generic communications, sociology, or even business administration degree that teaches you how to manage the status quo rather than how to invent the future, you are completely destroying your financial trajectory before it even begins. You are bleeding hundreds of dollars a month for decades to pay off an asset that depreciates the moment you graduate. And if you simply stretch that payment out over the typical lifespan of these loans, in 20 years this transforms into over $170,000, evaporated permanently into a broken, bloated university system that uses your money to build unnecessary administrative buildings and rock-climbing walls. This is the real, measurable cost of your desperate need for social validation and fake prestige. You are literally financing your own enslavement. Now, look at the completely opposite reality. Look at the contrarian path. If you step out of the matrix today, refuse to participate in the education bubble, stop pursuing a useless degree, take an entry-level job in a high-growth sector to learn actual, scalable skills while keeping your living expenses near absolute zero, and allocate that exact same capital towards an asymmetric advantage or a high-yield index fund, investing those same $500 a month into the S&P 500 with a historical return of 10%, in 25 years you will not have an obsolete piece of paper. You will have over $600,000 in liquid compounding assets. The difference is an absolute fortune of pure, unadulterated freedom, the difference between being a slave to a lender and being the master of your own capital. I saw this exact, highly predictable scenario play out perfectly with one of the early Thiel fellows who possessed the intellectual courage to drop out of the Ivy League, completely skip the $80,000 in toxic, non-dischargeable debt, ignored the collective outrage of his parents and peers, started coding relentlessly in his small bedroom, and built a software company that generated millions of dollars in highly profitable revenue before he was even 22 years old, achieving a level of sovereignty that his former classmates will never see in their entire lifetimes. Contrarian wealth builders absolutely refuse toxic debt because they understand a fundamental law of the universe that true wealth is not a slow, agonizing crawl up a corporate ladder. It is an asymmetric leap from 0 to 1. It is about building monopolies of one and escaping competition entirely, whereas the herd lives paycheck to paycheck, terrified of missing the next payment, and takes on six-figure student loans because they completely buy into the social validation myth, deeply convinced that a brand-name university will somehow protect them from the harsh realities of a rapidly changing global economy. The mathematical result of these two diverging paths after 20 years is staggering and irrefutable. The first group, the independent thinkers, commands millions of dollars, extreme geographic flexibility, and total autonomy over their time and energy, while the second group is hopelessly drowning in the system, begging politicians for student loan forgiveness, entirely dependent on corporate HR departments. The difference is literally millions of dollars in net worth and a lifetime of freedom versus a lifetime of quiet desperation, and the systemic failure goes even deeper when we examine the second massive error. Buying into the grand illusion of the corporate ladder and the deeply toxic 30-year mortgage trap as the ultimate validation of having achieved the American dream, the herd genuinely believes with every fiber of their being that locking themselves into a completely inflexible 30-year debt agreement for a suburban house filled with depreciating consumer assets is the absolute pinnacle of success and the only secure way to live a respectable life. But the conventional American dream is a poorly coded software program running on completely obsolete hardware. It is a relic of the mid-20th century specifically designed to create a compliant, highly taxable workforce that will quit their job because they are absolutely It permanently ties you to a specific, arbitrary geographic location and forces you to cling desperately to a corporate middle management job you deeply despise just to appease the banking system, effectively killing your ability to innovate, to move to where the capital is flowing, or to take the entrepreneurial leap required to start an asymmetric business. Let us do the brutal, unforgiving math on this widely accepted illusion right now. If you are 30 years old and you buy a $500,000 house with a minimal down payment at a 7% interest rate simply to impress people you do not even like and to satisfy the mimetic desire of your peer group, you are bleeding thousands of dollars a month directly to a financial institution that produces absolutely nothing of value. And if you hold that mortgage to term, in 30 years, you will pay over $1 million for that house, evaporating over $500,000 purely in interest payments directly into a broken system. This is the real quantifiable cost of following the herd into the suburban housing matrix. You are trading your prime years of innovation for a heavy wooden box that constantly requires expensive maintenance. But if you step out of the matrix today, ruthlessly abandon the need for homeownership status, rent a modest apartment to maintain extreme geographic and career flexibility, and invest the $2,000 monthly difference into a broad market index like the S&P 500 with a historical return of 10%, in 30 years you will not just have a house, you will have over $4 million in highly liquid compounding assets. The difference is over $3 million of pure, unadulterated freedom and the total elimination of your dependence on a corporate employer. The mathematics of reality are completely undeniable. Just look at the most successful contrarian tech founders in Silicon Valley who lived with 4 roommates in their 20s and rented tiny, overpriced apartments, keeping their personal burn rate at absolute zero while building global monopolies. They did not care for a single second about the fake prestige of a freshly cut lawn, a 2-car garage, or a heavy mortgage. They cared exclusively about exponential growth, preserving their capital for asymmetric bets, and maintaining the absolute freedom to pivot their lives and businesses at a moment's notice. Contrarian wealth builders maintain extreme flexibility and liquidity because they deeply understand that avoiding toxic long-term debt designed to keep the middle class docile is the ultimate competitive advantage in a rapidly changing world. Whereas the herd lives paycheck to paycheck and buys massively overpriced houses they cannot actually afford because they completely buy into the credit score myth and the social validation of homeownership, desperate for a tangible symbol of their mediocrity. The result after 30 years is a stark, mathematically predictable contrast. The first group commands millions of dollars in liquid capital, total autonomy over their schedule, and the ability to fund their own ventures, while the second group is drowning in the system, spending 3 full decades paying off a bank just to own a depreciating physical structure. The difference is millions of dollars in net worth and an entire lifetime of geographic imprisonment. And let me present you with a completely different, highly contrarian paradigm for the third catastrophic error, which is blindly relying on the traditional, highly regulated financial system to teach you about money, specifically delegating your wealth creation to the bureaucratic, bloated mutual fund industry and the government through the traditional 401k system. Hoping to save your way to wealth by the time your body is too old to enjoy it, The herd genuinely believes that they can achieve financial freedom by putting away 5% of their rapidly depreciating fiat currency into a slow-lane retirement account, while the true inflation rate runs absolutely rampant, destroying their purchasing power year after year. Following this traditional, state-sanctioned path is exactly like fighting a brutal war of attrition, where the only guaranteed outcome is that everyone participating inevitably loses. Let us look at the devastating mathematics of playing it safe and trusting the institutions. If you are 40 years old and you are blindly throwing $300 a month into a poorly managed mutual fund with exorbitant hidden fees simply because a corporate financial advisor told you to diversify your ignorance, you are violently bleeding your purchasing power every single year, and in 25 years, this transforms into a meager, pathetic portfolio that barely covers your inflated medical bills, evaporating hundreds of thousands of dollars in pure opportunity cost into a broken, fee-extracting financial system. This is the real cost of your total failure of imagination and your blind, obedient trust in institutional mediocrity. You are allowing the system to use your capital to enrich themselves while tossing you absolute pennies. Now, if you step out of the matrix today, completely stop relying on the slow lane designed for the masses, aggressively educate yourself on asymmetric risk, and invest $1,000 a month into high-conviction assets, disruptive technologies, or your own scalable digital business with a potential return of 20%, in 20 years you will have over $3 million. The difference is not just financial, the difference is total, irreversible liberation from the state and the corporate machine. The people who actually win in this country, the ones who dictate the future, do not wait for the government, a corporate pension, or a heavily taxed retirement account to save them. Just look at the independent creators, the visionary software engineers, and the contrarian investors generating millions with zero physical overhead. They take extreme ownership, they completely bypass the corporate hierarchy, and they build absolute monopolies of one. Contrarian wealth builders violently seek exponential returns and asymmetric opportunities because they understand that trying to build wealth by competing with everyone else in a corporate hierarchy is a mathematical guarantee of achieving only average, mediocre results. The herd lives paycheck to paycheck and hopes for a microscopic 3% annual raise because they completely buy into the safe retirement myth, terrified of taking a single risk. The result after 25 years is completely binary. The first group commands vast fortunes, total autonomy, and true power. The second group is drowning in the system. Completely reliant on a broken social security net that will likely not even exist, the difference is generational wealth and millions of dollars. So what exactly do you do from now on? How do you escape this deeply entrenched systemic trap? You need an immediate, ruthless, and entirely uncompromising action plan, a complete mental checklist to break your decades of social conditioning. First, you must step entirely out of the debt matrix in the next 24 hours, liquidate absolutely any depreciating asset that is chaining you down to a monthly payment, sell the expensive car you fundamentally cannot afford, ruthlessly cut up every single credit card that tricks you into consuming instead of producing, and completely stop caring entirely about what mediocre losers and your conventional family members think of your new lifestyle. Then you must aggressively find your asymmetric advantage, acquire a specific, highly scalable skill that has infinite leverage like complex coding, digital media creation, or advanced capital allocation, and deploy your newly freed resources ruthlessly this very month. You must stop spreading your finite energy across 50 mediocre safe ideas and concentrate all of your capital and focus on the one single contrarian thing that actually works. There are absolutely no more excuses for following the herd, because the historical information asymmetry that used to heavily protect the elite institutions no longer exists. The knowledge is entirely free. But the execution requires supreme intellectual courage. You are facing a dramatic, irreversible choice right now. Looking down two completely divergent paths, you can confidently and comfortably continue on the exact path of the herd. Taking on toxic university debt, which is a modern-day indenture for a piece of paper that has lost its value, begging middle managers for incremental promotions, trading your finite time for depreciating dollars, and ultimately retiring at 65 years old with a broken body, an empty bank account, and a profound sense of regret, forced to compete for scraps and completely reliant on a failing economic system that never cared about you in the first place. Or you can wake up today, Look the reality of the situation in the face. Aggressively reject the competition, stop doing exactly what everyone else is doing, and start building true exponential wealth right now. The ultimate formula for absolute failure is simply doing what everyone else is doing and expecting a different, exceptional result. The education, housing, and corporate bubble is the absolute biggest, most destructive financial trap in modern human history, and your active, conscious refusal to participate in it is your absolute greatest weapon. Time is rapidly running out to secure your financial independence before the system completely consolidates its power over the middle class. If this video shattered your conventional, comfortable illusions today, if you are finally ready to step out of the herd, leave your like down below. Subscribe to the channel right now and share this with someone who desperately needs to wake up from the matrix, because following the crowd in America today is a mathematically guaranteed path to total financial ruin. You must stop competing, you must start inventing, and you must make the definitive leap from 0 to 1.